Hi everyone, you're joining me at Patapsco State Park today, a beautiful park in Maryland. I've had several people ask me to share my story from diagnosis till now, which I realize I haven't done. What is this on my shirt? So I'd like to do that now, a shortened version, what I remember. So it was February 2017 and I was standing topless in front of a mirror. I lifted my arm and noticed that a piece of my skin on my breast puckered in when I lifted my arm. So I made an appointment with my OBGYN, who said, "Oh, it's nothing to worry about. It feels just like the rest of your breast tissue and you're too young to have cancer. But if you'd like, if it would make you feel more comfortable, I can schedule you for a mammogram." At that point, I'd already started researching, and I knew that mammograms were not super effective at finding breast cancer in people with small, dense breasts, which is what I had. So I also asked her for an ultrasound, which she agreed to, and I went in. I had the ultrasound done first, and the ultrasound tech asked me what I was doing for Valentine's Day, because it was February 14th, and I told her I was going for frozen yogurt with my husband and daughter, and she said, "Oh honey, you deserve full fat ice cream today." And so I knew that there was something that she was seeing, and I asked her about it, and she said she couldn't say anything, but that the radiologist would be in to talk to me. The radiologist came in and said, "Nothing to worry about, but let's go ahead with that mammogram." And since I had already been doing some research, I asked him some questions, and I realized by his answers that there was something to worry about. I don't remember what those questions were anymore. But anyway, after that mammogram, we all decided together to do a biopsy that same day because of what they saw. In hindsight, knowing what I know now, I would not have rushed to a biopsy. But I didn't want it hanging over my head at the time. I just wanted some answers, and I didn't know that there was a risk in biopsies. Seems like there was. That might have been the reason that my cancer went from stage 1A to stage 4 pretty quickly. So anyway, got the biopsy, got results back 2 days later. It was malignant. It was a grade 3 ER positive breast cancer. They wouldn't know what stage until they removed it. It was DCIS and IDC. IDC is in something ductal carcinoma. Invasive ductal carcinoma, and DCIS is the kind that is considered stage 0 because it's completely held inside and it's not invading outside of the area. So it looked like I had both, and I had stuff in 3 of the 4 quadrants of my breast. So lumpectomy was not an option, so it was mastectomy. I decided to get a double mastectomy, even though my doctors thought that was that I didn't need to, because there was nothing in my other breast. After talking to some family, again really new to cancer and what to do, I decided to have both breasts removed. And the pathology came back. Only the one breast was affected, the other one was fine. I could not spare my nipple on the one, but I did on the other. So at the time of my mastectomy, that was March 22nd of 2017, I also had, what are they called? I also had at the time of my mastectomy, I also had placers put in. I forget what they're called now. anyway, like the precursor to implants. And so after my mastectomy, I was told that I should start tamoxifen, which is a drug that does not allow the cells of your body to receive estrogen, though it does allow the cells of your uterine lining. It does allow some cells to receive extra estrogen, but then other cells to not be able to take up estrogen, because the cancer that was in my breast was highly estrogen positive, which means that it feeds off of estrogen. But that I shouldn't start that for a little bit after my surgery, and then I should come off of it for about 4 weeks before my reconstruction surgery. So after doing a little bit of research into tamoxifen, I learned that it was a carcinogen. I learned about all of its nasty side effects, and I just didn't feel good about doing it, honestly, and I didn't. So I could have been on it for maybe 6 months or so before my recurrence. I don't know if it would have had an impact in 6 months before I found the recurrence. I don't know. So I didn't go on it. I was getting fills into my spacers, getting ready for my reconstructive surgery, and in that time, I don't remember, it's a hazy time trying to deal with my diagnosis. I was in pretty deep depression, and yeah, just so many channels of information from everywhere was pretty dizzying. So I had my reconstruction, and then I was gonna make my decision of how to move forward. Oh, in that time I had my tumors tested with the Oncotype DX test, and essentially it gives you a number, and that number tells you how likely you are to have a recurrence. And so depending on how high that number is, they would recommend different things like chemos if it was really high, or just hormone therapy if it was lower. So my numbers, I had 3 different tumors tested, and they came up with 3 different numbers. All of the numbers were within the intermediate range, and so it was up to me to decide whether or not I wanted chemo. Since that time, that was several years ago, they've come out and said that people in that intermediate range should not have chemo. So I chose not to have chemo. Then I had my reconstructive surgery. About 3 weeks after my reconstructive surgery, I noticed a spot on the skin over top of my reconstructed breast. And in the next few weeks, it looked to me like it was growing. So I mentioned it to my surgical oncologist, the woman who removed my breasts, and at a follow-up, and she said, "Oh, that's nothing. It's probably just from the reconstruction." So I went back again the next month. To me, it looked like it had changed. I mentioned it to her again. She said, "Oh, it's nothing, but if you want to feel safer about it, you can have an ultrasound done." So I did. The ultrasound tech, the paper that I got back from the radiologist that read it, said it's benign, it's nothing. But it kept changing and growing, so I went back, and finally she said, okay, let's biopsy it. So she biopsied it in the office. I got my results back. It was malignant. And so that was on my skin. So that's, even though it is local, the fact that it was on my skin is a different organ, so it was considered stage 4. So I had a full body scan done at that time to see if it had spread anywhere else, and it showed up in my iliac bone in my hip. I had that biopsied and confirmed that it was malignant. So I was officially stage 4. That was so by the time I officially had the stage 4 diagnosed, it was February 16th of 2018. So a year later, even though I had seen that spot growing for several months. Yeah. And then I went through another emotional whirlwind for about 3 months. Kind of all of that is a haze. I went deeper into researching. I started finding all these drugs that help kill cancer cells, drugs and supplements and diets and spiritual work. And so I started implementing as much as I could, but I'm no scientist, and I certainly wasn't doing it in much of a scientific or organized way. I was just trying things. And so things kind of grew slowly. They kept growing slowly. Another spot of metastasis appeared on my arm. That one really started hurting. I couldn't even lift up a fork to eat with it without it hurting. My oncologist said that I shouldn't lift more than a pound, that I was at increased risk of it breaking. So I had some radiation to that arm, palliative radiation. I also had later radiation to my hip because that started hurting. And then I had some spots in my spine. I had radiation to my spine. I could only comfortably tolerate 3 days of radiation to my spine. I went in on the 4th day just to push myself. Only 10 days were recommended because it was palliative, just to get it to stop hurting. So, but by the 4th day, I told my oncologist, the radiation oncologist, that I was not feeling well. I was tired. My intestines were burning every time I ate. And I had read that people, when they get radiation there, it can impact their digestive system forever. And I didn't want that to happen, and my intestines were already hurting every time they were trying to digest food. And so I asked if I could stop, and he said, no, you really need to finish. So I went in for day 5, and then it was just like, no, I'm gonna stop. I just felt worse, and it was only halfway through, and I already couldn't tolerate it, so I stopped. Fast forward, I'm still trying new things, reading new things. I learned about Joe Tippin's protocol with the fenbendazole. I started that. I learned about Jane McLelland and the Care Oncology Clinic, and I signed up with the Care Oncology Clinic. So I started taking a lot of things, and I learned that really the best thing to do is block all of the metabolic pathways of cancer. And so I knew which drugs would block which pathways, but I was having a really hard time, 1, getting my hands on them, and 2, keeping them down. So I was vomiting like every other day, and I was still not even taking 1/3 of the pills that I should have been taking in order to block all of the pathways. So then my liver enzymes shot up. I was taking a lot of different things, so that's, I guess, expected. And in that time, I'd also started taking a low dose of tamoxifen. I read that, so I think it's 20 grams, 10 grams, I forget, that is recommended daily for women with breast cancer. But there was a study done that even 2 milligrams was just as effective as 20. And so I started on a low dose, like maybe 2.5 milligrams of tamoxifen. And 2 months after that, I had a scan done, and there were tumors everywhere in my liver. And well, yes, so liver came before the tamoxifen. All right, back up a little bit. I had a scan done before I started the tamoxifen that showed metastases to the liver, an aortic lymph node, inguinal nodes, 14 different places in my bone, skin. I could see the skin ones, and just under the skin over the implant. That was really big too. Hello.
You're fine.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. Howdy.
Hello. Oh, I realize I need to walk because I need to pick up my daughter from school. So where was I? Okay, skin, lymph, liver, bone, 14 places in bone, and then took the tamoxifen for 2 months, and then tumors in my ovaries and uterus, which that's one of the side effects of tamoxifen is tumors in your ovaries and uterus. So I stopped the tamoxifen and started Zoladex instead, which shuts off your ovaries. Tamoxifen does not shut off your ovaries, it just doesn't allow your cells to absorb estrogen. So Zoladex is actually considered less effective because your ovaries produce about 80% of your estrogen, and the other 20% is produced by fat and other things. So, but it still allows your cells to take up estrogens. So it's a little bit of a gentler treatment than tamoxifen, in my opinion. Oh, by the way, I am not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a person who is working on staying alive and not letting cancer get me. So anyway, Zoladex. Oh, a year before the Zoladex, I started taking Xgeva, which is a bone strengthener, which also tends to help prevent metastases to bone. So 3 weeks into the Zoladex, I started noticing my tumor that I could see and feel over my implant was shrinking, and my next scan after starting the Zoladex, I don't remember how many months into it, was all clear. So my oncologist said that those are not typical results, but I'm not a typical patient because most patients don't wait until it's stage 4 to start hormone therapy. So who knows, it could have been just the Zoladex that killed off the fast dividing cancer cells that led to tumors, or it also could have been the other things that I had been doing. So many things. I think one of my heavy hitters right before I got the all clear was I did several rounds of high dose vitamin C with doxycycline and azithromycin. In studies, they've shown that that combination kills more than 95% of breast cancer stem cells, which is something that chemos and hormone therapies and other conventional drugs don't do yet. Right now, their drugs only kill the fast dividing cells, and the stem cells are like the mother cells. They don't divide quickly. So anyway, a lot of times with conventional treatments, you do get a reduction in tumor, but then it comes back, and they think it's because it doesn't kill the stem cells. So anyway, what else? So I got one scan that showed no evidence of active disease, and the spots in my bone looked like they were healing. I was having pain in my bone, and they said that that can be from healing. So then I kind of stopped everything except for the Zoladex and the Xgeva, which are the two conventional treatments I'm on. It was just hard and expensive to keep up with everything. hard on my body, hard on my mind. It was an all-consuming full-time thing, and I wanted to focus on actually living and not just working to stay alive. So I stopped, and then I had another scan that looked similar, no metabolic activity, but my tumor markers were higher than they were in the past, and I feel that spot over my implant feels like it's bigger than it was. And so I've started back up with a few heavy hitters. High dose melatonin, which is incredible for all cancers, but especially for breast and also testicular or prostate. I think prostate. I hope to make a video all about high dose melatonin soon, because it'll help me just digest more of the science of it and what's happening, and I think it will really help you too. So I've started with high dose melatonin at night. I don't measure what dose I'm taking. I have looked into the research. Some people suggest 20 milligrams, some people suggest 180 milligrams. I went with 180 at night, and I bought my own powder so that I didn't have to be taking 20 pills of melatonin at night. And I didn't have to get all the filler, so I just bought pure melatonin powder, which I just looked on Amazon today. They are not in stock. It's no longer available. So I don't know. I think the next closest dose that I've seen are 20 milligram capsules. So high dose melatonin is one. I just got hit in the face with a leaf. Then the other few things that I started back up on just last night actually is dipyramol. I can never pronounce that correctly. Dipyridamol, maybe. It is an antiplatelet drug. I'm gonna slowly swap it out for the Eliquis that I'm currently on. The dipyridamol synergizes really well with atorvastatin and an NSAID and low-dose naltrexone. I forget. I'll have to get back to you on the exact science for that. But so all those drugs that I just mentioned I'm taking at night, and several of them synergize real well together. And so instead of just getting the benefit, let's say the dipyridamol helps reduce cancer by 25%, and let's say the low-dose naltrexone helps by 10%. I'm just making up these numbers. When you put them together, you don't just get a 35% boost, 25% plus 10%. You actually get a more dynamic boost, so you might get a 50% instead. So the science is fascinating. So I started taking those at night, and then green tea I'm taking in the morning. Curcumin, I need to get some more uracilic acid. Tulsi tea and curcumin have the same synergistic effects where they work stronger and better together than they do separately. I started taking metformin again and berberine again. Those work in many different ways, but don't take them together unless you're used to it. And I mean, don't take any of this. None of this is medical advice. This is just what I'm doing. Yes, so I'm starting this. So last time I didn't track. I have not been great about being organized. This time I hope to keep better track of what I'm doing so that I know, doctors know, and I can share better with others. And then I was just on the phone with Envita Clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona. They are an integrative clinic that Oh, oh, a deer. I'll see if I can show it to you. What a beautiful tail. So they really seem amazing. They have this test that will tell you what your cancer will respond to, both conventional cancer drugs, off-label drugs, supplements, diets, and tells you a lot of information about everything. I don't know all the details yet. And then they have treatments that are difficult to find in other places. So I'd love to go. It's $16,000 plus $550 just for the initial consultation and the testing. Then their treatment can go $120,000 or more, depending on how long you're staying. She said $80,000 to $120,000 or more. So that's so expensive. But I'm considering it. My life is worth it. Your life is worth it. Our lives are worth it. That's something that I need to get over, that sticker shock. It's like, I don't have that kind of money. I don't want to spend that kind of money. And of course I don't want to. But, I mean, what is money? Am I putting money above myself? So I'm considering that. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good update, nice and long. Thank you so much. And chat. Oh, my diet. It's not going well. I said last time that I was going to attempt a low glycemic diet. That did not work. It worked for like 2.5 days. And oh man, then I binged on a lot of high glycemic foods. If anybody has any ideas for maybe a support group where we can check in every day and keep each other accountable, I would love to do something, because this eating thing is really challenging for me. Have a great day, guys.